Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I'm out here on the Lectric XP4 to do a range test and see just how far this bike can go on a full charge. And for today's ride I will be cruising around in sport mode, which is basically the equivalent of pedal assist 3. It's pretty much a middle of the road pedal assist level, which, you know, based on my riding is probably going to be very common for a lot of folks to be riding around in that. And so we'll see how far we can get in sport mode today. Now, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I do have a mirror installed on the left handlebar here. This is a Me Chow mirror. And some of our ride has us riding on streets today. So if that's what you're going to be doing, I highly recommend getting a mirror or mirrors on your bike. That way you can, get a heads up as to who's about to pass you, who's coming up behind you. That way, if you need to take action, you're able to do so. I will be tracking today's ride with Garmin GPS, which is what I use for all of my range tests. That way we have an accurate and consistent way that we can use for a basis of comparison for this bike's performance. Now, if you followed my channel for a while, this path might look familiar. This is actually the Powerline Trail, and it is this route that I use for all of my range tests. That way we can minimize the different variables in our testing. The version of the XP4 that we're cruising around on today is the 750 nominal watt variant in the step-thru frame, raindrop blue. And this particular bike comes with a 17.5 amp hour battery, which being at 48 volts should be good for 840 watt hours of capacity. Now, Lectric does state that we can expect up to 85 miles of theoretical range in the most ideal conditions with a 180-pound rider, cruising around in the lowest level of pedal assist. But as you know, today we're going to be riding around in pedal assist 3 or the equivalent of sport mode. And so I suspect we're going to be getting significantly lower range than those estimates. Based on how some of my other torque sensor e-bikes have performed, including the XPeak 2.0, which got 0.057 miles per watt hour, I suspect we're going to get somewhere between 45 and 47 miles today, but we'll see. We'll see how we end up. This trail that we're riding on today is approximately 70% paved and 30% hard packed dirt, so that'll give us an opportunity to test this bike out on a variety of riding surfaces. And the good news here with this setup is that it does have a front fork suspension with preload and lockout. That way, when you're cruising on kind of more rougher terrain, you've at least got some dampening for comfort. In addition to the front fork suspension, we've also got the comfort seat as well as a suspension seat post, which so far I found to be very comfortable. We'll see how I feel at the end of this ride. That's always going to be the test. The standard electric bike seat that comes with most of electric bikes, I find to be very uncomfortable on long rides. And so this is actually the first time I'm testing out their comfort seat. Normally, I just yank off that electric standard seat and replace it with a Cloud 9 seat, which I've had very good luck with. I use that on most of my e-bikes. But this comfort seat so far, based on my riding up on our endurance hill climb test, up 17.5 miles of winding mountain roads, turned out to be very comfortable. So we'll see how it holds up today. For all of you keeping track, we just crossed the 7-mile mark and we've been cruising around for about 29 minutes at this point, so making pretty good progress. Battery bar shows 100%. The bar itself is completely full. Voltage with no load is approximately 52.6. And so for today's ride, we will be using voltage to gauge our turnaround point. And with e-bikes, I usually do it around 60 to 65%. Which should be somewhere around 49 volts. And the reason why I do that is that as you ride these bikes over long distances, voltage goes down as you wear down that battery. And as voltage goes down, output goes down, power goes down, acceleration goes down. And so the first half of the battery is always going to be more performant than the second half of the battery. As you can see, we're cruising around on this hard packed dirt that's got some fine gravel on top. And these mixed terrain 20-inch by 3-inch fat tires are doing a really good job gripping this stuff. And it's also relatively quiet. All right, we're gonna roll on through here. One thing I love about this place here in Gilbert is that they have bike stations with air and tools and everything so that you can service your bike along these canal paths, which literally go for hundreds of miles throughout the valley. And so if you're fortunate enough to live next to one of these things, you can basically, you know, travel the entire Phoenix metro area via the canal paths only. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so from this point on, I'll be checking in with you every 5 to 7 miles, or if we have something interesting along the way. That way this video doesn't go on for 4.5 hours. All right, folks, so right up ahead is our pedestrian bridge. Give us a good opportunity to test out the hill climbability of this bike. Once again, we are in sport mode. Go ahead and shift down a gear. And, you know, I should say shift down, I'm going the wrong way. Anyways, we're coming up here. If at any point in time I needed more power, I can always bump us into Sport Plus or turbo mode, which would get us up even faster. But even in tour, or I should say even in sport mode, we were able to get through this no problem at all. All right, coming down, good opportunity to test out the brakes. It's got hydraulic brakes, 180 millimeter discs, and as you can see, no problem at all. Now these particular brakes are Star Union 602 hydraulic brakes, 602 being the area code for the Phoenix area. There was a little nod by Lectric to the valley, and I found these provide really good stopping power. They did beef up the thickness on the 180 millimeter rotors for the XP4 compared to the XP 3.0, and should contribute to an overall improved braking experience on this bike. Right now I'm pedaling around in sport mode. Cadence is right around 48, nice comfortable ride. We're in gear 8 right now, and this is perfect. You know, Lectric did put a torque sensor on this bike, which is a big difference from the cadence sensor that you see on the XP 3.0. And so far, based on my testing, I've found this torque sensor to be very responsive, very little delay, and if you want more output from it, you do have the ability to go into the advanced settings menu and beef up the torque multiplier if you want to basically, you know, more fully leverage the power that you're putting into those pedals. Now, one of the things that I really like about this torque sensor is it gives you a much more natural ride feel. Best way to describe it is it gives you the sensation of having superhuman legs. And with these torque sensors, you know, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. But like I said, you do have the option to go take advantage of that torque multiplier. I personally don't use that. I keep it in standard mode. I feel like that's a lot smoother power delivery. But with these torque sensor e-bikes, if you want to get in a solid workout, you absolutely can. You just need to dial down that level of pedal assist. That way you're doing more work and the bike's doing less work. For all of you keeping track, we just crossed the 14-mile mark. We've been riding around for about 58 minutes at this point. Screen showing about 90% battery remaining, but our voltage is resting around 51.3. So we're making pretty good progress on this ride today. I don't know how well you can see it, but I did install a bell here. You are kind of limited into where you can install that bell because you do have this trigger shifter gear readout here. If you get a bell with a very thin strap, you can fish it on through there, but I just threw this on here. I like this bell. It's a Rock Bros bell. Gets the job done, and it's not too much of a stretch, and it's not like I'm using that, you know, non-stop. So works out for me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull over to the side here, take a quick water break. There's a quick look at our XP4. As you can see, it's the step-through frame. I've gotten some questions from folks about how rigid the frame is. It's very rigid. I haven't had any wobbles or anything like that, so really happy with this setup. Here in the back, I do have a Kemimoto bag. Really nice. It's got this kind of like fold-out pannier bags on the side. And then in my bag, if you're curious, what I carry around, I got some water bottles. I got a bike pump. I've got a crescent wrench in my bag. In my other bag, my backpack, I've got a tool kit here. So in the event I need to, you know, patch up my tires or whatever, I've got the tools necessary to do that. I've got my Allen keys. I've got some camera mounts and stuff like that, but much nicer to carry this in a bag on the bike rather than loading it up into a big heavy backpack. So anyways, here's a closer look at that side view mirror that I have installed on here. This is a Michow mirror. I've been using this for almost 2 years at this point, and I swap it out on different bikes that I'm riding, and really like it. Very easy to install. Just keep in mind you're going to have a plug on here I'll show you that right now. You've got these little electric plugs. You just pry this off. This is just basically press fitted in there. You can get a flathead screwdriver or something, or a bottle opener, and just get it in between the crack here and pry this off. And then you can just put a handlebar mounted mirror on your bike. You could also install those mirrors that clamp on to the actual handlebars themselves. All right, so we are off to the races. And so what's interesting about this ride is we go through multiple cities. I started in Gilbert, we crossed into Chandler, now we're in Tempe, Arizona, and if we keep going, we end up in Phoenix. And so a lot of times these range tests take us across 4 different cities. So that's pretty cool. That was pretty awesome. That was a couple people riding by on their Lectric One. That's probably at this point my favorite all-time e-bike because it's got that pinion gear shift system. I just completed my 300-mile review, published that a while back, so if you're interested in checking that out, I will include a link in the description as well. But that's a pretty awesome bike. No suspension, but it's a great kind of city commuter bike with lots of tech in it. That pinion automatic gear shift system is next level. Something that I will say is that if you're on the fence about getting an e-bike, I'll just kind of give you my experience. For me, it's been life-changing. You know, when I first got my Lectric XP 3.0, I had no clue what was in store for me, all the adventures that I'd go out on. And at this point, across all the bikes that I've ridden, I've put thousands upon thousands of miles into these rides. And so it's given me the opportunity to, you know, go out further than I ever imagined. It's given me the opportunity to go explore places I didn't even know existed in my own community. And so e-bikes definitely are a great opportunity to kind of shrink the world around you and go explore different places. All right, we're gonna go ahead and turn into the Kiwanis Park area here. This is Tempe, Arizona, yet another city that we're riding through today on this glorious bike ride. There we go, got little bell action there. Cruise on through here. There's going to be a cobblestone little bridge. We'll cross over that, see how the suspension does. As you can see, suspension absorbed a lot of that, but you did hear some noise. Some of that was stuff in my bag banging around. But a lot of it was that front suspension. This area here has huge bike lanes. I wish all bike lanes were set up like this, you know, nice, big, comfortable. Usually bike lanes are on the side of the road where you get a bunch of, like, you know, debris and broken glass and stuff like that that the, you know, street cleaners don't pick up. With this, it's well positioned in the road, so you're not just like hugging up against all that garbage. For all of you keeping track, we just crossed the 21-mile mark. We've been riding around for an hour and 29 minutes at this point. Battery showing 70% on the screen. Voltage is at 49.8. So once we get around 48.8, 49, we'll mark that as our turnaround point and start heading back. This lake is definitely filled to the brim today because we've had quite a bit of rain lately. Oh man, this thing is kind of flooding over. We'll ride out onto the dock here. Be nice and careful. Definitely don't want to test out that IPX5 water resistance rating. I'll go ahead and drop us into 0 pedal assist. And here we go, folks, out on the dock on the Lectric XP4. Always nice coming out here in the morning. Nice and quiet. Birds all over the place. And before I started riding e-bikes, I actually had no clue this even existed, so always a treat on these range tests. All right, one more steep hill for today's ride. I'm gonna pull out through here. Boom, made it through. 750 nominal watts, 1310 peak watts of power, 85 Newton meters of torque. And I mentioned this on, I think, my first impressions ride, you know, right out of the box. This bike has got more than enough power for like 99% of scenarios, you know. So if you live in a place with steep hills, even like San Francisco style hills, you're not gonna have to worry about it. You got plenty of power with this 750 watt setup. All right, folks, I'm gonna go ahead and call this our turnaround point. We're still above 49 volts, but on the way back, we've got some detours that we can take. That way we can end our ride more or less at the same spot that we started at today. But yeah, 22.5 miles is our turnaround point. So I'm thinking that 47 miles is going to be more or less spot on, but we'll see. Now, one of the big changes that Lectric made with the XP4 is the 0-degree stem, which essentially means that the angle of the stem is in line with the front fork. It's not pitched forward. And the effect of that is to bring the handlebars closer to the rider, which means you're going to have a much more upright riding position, which, as you can see, my hands, they're free. I don't have pressure on my hands. Some bikes, you know, you're hunched over, you know, you got a lot of weight. Your hands are basically taking on a weight-bearing function, which can lead to fatigue and exhaustion over time. And so with this, it's a very comfortable ride position. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, that's for sure. But for me, I'm very happy with what they did here. All right, folks, so for all of you keeping track, we officially crossed the 28-mile mark. We've been riding around for about 2 hours at this point. Battery percentage on the screen indicates 60%. Voltage under no load is showing about 48 volts. Now that we're hanging out about 46.4 volts, I can definitely feel that we've got slightly reduced power compared to when we were at the same spot at the beginning of our ride. And so, as I mentioned, when you wear that battery down, voltage goes down, you get less output, less top speed, less acceleration, just overall less performance out of it. And so right now, you know, I'm putting in just a little bit more effort than I was before. Now, quick update here, we officially crossed the 35-mile mark. We've been riding around for about 2 hours, 34 minutes. Resting voltage is sitting right around 46 volts, so that puts us at 40% battery remaining. So we're still making really good progress. Always nice riding through here. You got some varied terrain, little hills, there's some water, thank goodness for the fenders. Quick little comfort update. Hands are doing fantastic, no back pain, feet feel great, butt is a little bit sore. You know, it's kind of to be expected when you're going on these, you know, 40+ mile rides, but anyways, overall, feeling pretty good. As our voltage continues to drop, you can feel the assistance level slowly decreasing over time. And so you'll see me switching through these gears, you know, dropping down to lower gears as we get closer and closer to 0% or 5% battery remaining. Nice little update for you here. We've officially exceeded the range that we were able to get on the Lectric XP 3.0. So we've passed that 39-mile mark. And, you know, on the screen it says we've got 30% battery remaining. We got a little more riding off the beaten path. Suspension's doing a good job absorbing a lot of this. One of the benefits of having a bike with a suspension is that you can ride around on more varied terrain and not have to worry about being too uncomfortable. Quick update here, we officially crossed the 42-mile mark. We've been riding for about 3 hours, 4 minutes at this point. Screen is showing 20% battery remaining. Resting voltage is right around 42.9, 43 volts. So we're getting down to the bottom of this battery now. You can definitely feel that it's a little less punchy than it was at the beginning. I can still maintain a pace of, you know, 16, 17 miles an hour in gear 7, in sport mode, of course. And so, bike's still doing pretty good. But as we get closer and closer, you're gonna see the amount of effort that I have to put in to maintain a given speed is gonna go up and up and up. All right, so we were able to make it back to the paved surfaces right now. Still cruising around in sport mode. Now I'm in gear 6, which is allowing me to maintain, you know, 16, 17 miles an hour. And screen is showing 10% battery remaining, resting voltage around 42.3. So we're getting close, folks. Quick little check-in for you here. I'm in gear 6, sport mode. We're able to maintain, you know, 14 miles an hour, so our speed is definitely diminished, and we're having to ride around in a lower gear to maintain those higher speeds. All right, folks, we're near the end. It says 0% remaining. I'm pedaling. It says motor power is 121 watts. So the bike is still putting in some effort. So there's still some juice to be had, but I think we're going to be calling it here in just a moment. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. All right, folks, so there you have it. That was our range test on the Lectric XP4. On this particular ride, we went 46.15 miles. We had an average moving speed of 14.7 miles an hour. We hit a top speed of 20.4 miles an hour. Elevation gain 653 feet. And today we were cruising around for 3 hours and 24 minutes. So as you can see, this Lectric XP4 definitely goes the distance. 46 plus miles is definitely a respectable range, especially on a folding bike like this. During the ride, there were no rattles, you know, anything banging around, vibrating, none of that. It was a very smooth ride. I will say that this comfort seat is definitely a step above the standard electric saddle, but not quite as comfortable as my Cloud 9 seat, but I don't think it's uncomfortable enough for me to swap it out, so I think I'm going to keep that on there. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Happy to address those in the comment section below. And if you do want to pick up one of these bikes, I will include an affiliate link in the description below. And if you use that to make your purchase, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. I will include my entire video library on this bike in the description below, and then just stay tuned. I will be publishing more content in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.